You have 30% in Ethereum, 20% in Solana, and a pile of garbage. You call that diversification. I call that diworsification. You are buying tickets for different cabins on the Titanic, hoping that will save you. That is not a strategy, that is incompetence. You are mixing pristine water with raw sewage and drinking it. Enough. It is time to understand the difference between a commodity that cannot be killed and a security that is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. Close your eyes. Stop looking at the numbers in your bank account. Stop obsessing over the nominal value of fiat currency that is melting in your hands. Visualize that capital as a battery. That battery represents the life force of your family. It is the stored energy of your past labor. It is the time you sacrificed, the stress you endured, the years you traded to build a future. Your only job as the engineer of your own destiny is to preserve this energy without loss. If you store electrical energy in a leaking battery, it dissipates, it bleeds out into the universe, lost forever to entropy. In the fiat world, we call that inflation. It is the resistance that drains your charge, the silent thief that steals your time. But in the world of crypto assets, you are facing something far worse than resistance. You are facing the risk that the battery itself simply ceases to exist. This is not finance, this is the physics of survival. Look at the portfolio of the modern crypto investor. You see a 20% allocation to Bitcoin, and the rest is a mosaic of Ethereum and 50 other DeFi tokens, protocols, and governance coins. You call this diversification. Wall Street taught you that putting your eggs in different baskets lowers your risk. They taught you to spread your bets, to hedge your exposure. But in this industry, that is a lie. This is not diversification. This is diworsification. You are selling the winner to buy the losers. This portfolio is not a treasure map. It is a map of a minefield. These colorful tickers create the illusion of safety. But in reality, you are merely multiplying the points of failure in your system. You are introducing counterparty risk into a portfolio where none should exist. You are taking the pristine thermodynamic certainty of digital energy and polluting it with human frailty. Most of you believe you are holding volatile, high-growth technology startups. I see a stick of dynamite with a smoldering fuse. These altcoins are not assets. They are liabilities masquerading as assets. The fuse represents the time remaining until a regulator or an internal failure detonates the project. While the fuse burns, you see green candles on a chart, and you feel like a genius. You feel like a venture capitalist discovering the next Amazon. But dynamite does not store energy. It releases energy destructively. Your portfolio is currently filled with unexploded ordnance, and you are praying that the fuse is infinite in length. But physics is ruthless. The explosion is not a matter of if, but when. The laws of financial gravity apply to everyone, and eventually, the market will realize that these tokens are not equity, they are not money, and they are not commodities. They are unregistered securities waiting for enforcement. There is Bitcoin, and there is everything else. Why? Because Bitcoin is a commodity. It is digital matter. Bitcoin was launched into the world without a pre-mine, without venture capital, and without promises. Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared, leaving behind a protocol that operates like the clockwork of the universe. Bitcoin respects only the laws of thermodynamics. To create it, you must burn electricity. Proof of work anchors the asset to physical reality. It bridges the digital and the physical, converting real-world energy into digital truth. This is not an opinion, this is physics. No one can change the speed of light, and no one can change the issuance of Bitcoin. It is a closed system. a singularity of truth in a universe of lies. Now contrast that purity with the rest of the market. Every altcoin has a face. Every protocol has a Bob or an Alice who decides what the next hard fork will look like. Every project has a foundation, a marketing department, a roadmap. The presence of a leader is a fatal vulnerability for money. As soon as you have a development team, you have a human element. And where there is a human, there is pressure, leverage, corruption, and error. Bitcoin is cruel because it is indifferent. It does not care about your feelings, your politics, or your nationality. It only cares about your cryptographic proof. Altcoins are friendly, quote, because they are run by people who want your money. They have community managers to comfort you. They have Discord servers to distract you. And those people are the target painted on the back of your portfolio. Let's perform a simple thought experiment. I call it the Subpoena Test. Imagine that tomorrow the government decides to kill your coin. To whom do they mail the subpoena? If it is Bitcoin, the postman has nowhere to go. There is no address, no CEO, no legal entity. Bitcoin is a swarm of cyber hornets serving the goddess of wisdom, feeding on the fire of truth, exponentially growing, ever smarter, faster, and stronger behind the wall of encrypted energy. You cannot sue a protocol. You cannot arrest mathematics. But if it is any other ticker in your portfolio, the subpoena arrives at a specific office in Zug or Singapore or New York. And the moment that leader receives the paper, your decentralized network halts or changes its rules at the behest of a judge. If you can subpoena the asset, it is not money. It is a security dependent on the will of third parties. It is a database controlled by a corporation masquerading as a global monetary network. You celebrate when a team publishes a roadmap? You are fools. A promise of upgrades is an admission that your asset is an investment contract. Commodities like gold, silver, or steel do not have roadmaps. Gold does not release version 2.0. Steel does not promise to switch to a more efficient molecular structure next quarter. The moment you rely on the efforts of others to write code, to increase throughput, or to transition to proof of stake, you satisfy the definition of a security. You no longer own property. You own a share in a tech startup that failed to register with the SEC. And that startup sold you those shares via an ICO or a pre-mine, violating securities law from day one. You are not an investor. You are a victim of regulatory arbitrage. Let's talk about yield. Where does it come from? They tell you it is a reward for staking. I tell you it is an unsecured dividend. When you buy equity in Apple, you receive a dividend from the company's profits. That is legitimate. But in crypto, this yield is often printed out of thin air, diluting your share, or it is paid using the capital of new entrants. It is a simulation of financial activity. From the perspective of a regulator, any asset promising passive income automatically looks like a security. You think you are compounding interest. In reality, you are compounding legal risk. You are picking up pennies in front of a steamroller driven by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the law of the land, and it has been for 80 years. Investment of money, common enterprise, expectation of profit derived from the efforts of others. The administration in the White House may have changed in 2025, but the law did not. Whether it is Gary Gensler, Paul Atkins, or anyone else leading the SEC, they cannot ignore reality. 99% of crypto assets pass this test perfectly as securities. The fact that they haven't been shut down yet is not permission. It is simply a backlog. Justice is slow, but it is inevitable. You think the new administration in Washington will save your altcoins? Think again. A pro-business administration seeks clarity in the protection of the dollar. Clarity is what you should fear. Clarity means Bitcoin is recognized as a commodity, while all your protocols are forced to disclose their beneficiaries, undergo audits, and register as public reporting companies. For most crypto projects, this is a death sentence because their entire business model is built on regulatory arbitrage. Their business model depends on selling unregistered tokens to retail investors to fund their operations. President Trump may build a wall on the border, but he will also build a wall between real money and unregistered fraudulent schemes. The state will not tolerate private companies printing their own unregistered stock and passing it off as global currency. Here is how it ends for the diversified portfolio. Exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken, under the pressure of new laws like the Clarity Act, will be forced to mass delist tokens that cannot comply. You will wake up one morning and the sell button will be gone. Liquidity will evaporate in seconds. The market makers will pull their bids. The order books will vanish. Your portfolio will turn into a museum of digital receipts, a graveyard of tickers that once had billion-dollar market caps. Unlike equities, there is no bankruptcy court to recover cents on the dollar. There is only zero. The illusion of safety will vanish, leaving you alone with your greed. You will be holding the bag for a venture capital firm that exited 3 years ago. You have a choice. You can continue to play in the casino with unregistered securities, hoping to outsmart the SEC, hoping to time the market, hoping to find the greater fool. Or you can choose the only asset that cannot be stopped, cannot be diluted, and cannot be subpoenaed. Sell the dynamite. Convert that energy into digital steel. There is Bitcoin, and there is everything else. Do not find yourself on the wrong side of history. Buy Bitcoin and wait. Close your eyes. I want you to transport yourself to a specific date. Monday, April 13, 2026. It is a morning of deceptive calm. The sun is streaming through your kitchen window, casting long, peaceful shadows across the floor. You can smell the fresh coffee brewing. You hear the hum of the refrigerator. You feel the comfort of your daily routine wrapping around you like a warm blanket. You are going through the motions of a successful life. You check your emails. You glance at the sports scores. You feel confident. You feel secure. The market has been stable for weeks, hovering in a range that suggests accumulation. You pick up your smartphone expecting to see the familiar green and red geometry of your financial future. You expect volatility. You expect noise. You do not suspect that the world changed overnight while you slept. You do not realize that the tectonic plates of the global financial system have shifted beneath your feet, and the ground you are standing on is no longer solid earth. It is a trap door. This morning will be the last morning you believed yourself to be wealthy. This is the last moment of innocence before the physics of law asserts its dominance over the metaphysics of hope. You open your exchange app. You tap the icon for Coinbase or Kraken or Binance. You are anticipating the dopamine hit of a portfolio check. But instead of the expected charts, instead of the comforting dance of tickers and percentages, you face a digital wall. The charts are gone, the order books are gone, the buy and sell buttons are gone. They have been replaced by a static slate gray notification that fills your entire screen. It is cold. It is bureaucratic. It bears the official seal of the United States Department of Justice, a heavy, archaic eagle staring back at you with indifferent eyes. Let me read the text to you, because this text is the epitaph of the crypto casino. Trading suspended in accordance with federal order pursuant to the Clarity Act. You stare at it. Your brain refuses to process the data. You assume it is a mistake. You try to refresh the page. You swipe down, watching the loading wheel spin, hoping it will wash away the nightmare and restore the illusion. You check your Wi-Fi connection. You toggle into airplane mode and back. You reboot your phone, your hands trembling slightly now, a cold sweat pricking at your hairline. But when the phone restarts and you reopen the app, the gray screen remains. It is silent. It is absolute. This is not a technical glitch you can fix with a software update. This is not a server overload caused by too much enthusiasm. This is the legal death of your assets. You thought you owned property. You thought you owned a share of the future. You were wrong. Your access to this money was a privilege granted by a regulatory apparatus you chose to ignore, and the state has just revoked it. The battery has not just leaked, it has been confiscated. Let's come back to the present. Let's return to the safety of 2025, where you still have choices, where the buttons still work. You need to understand the trap before it snaps shut. You need to see the mechanism of the guillotine while the blade is still suspended. Right now in the halls of Congress, there is a bill moving through committee. It seems like harmless bureaucracy. It is wrapped in the boring, beige language of legislative compromise. They call it the Clarity Act, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. Politicians are giving speeches about it. Lobbyists are selling it as long-awaited clarity for the crypto market. They use words like consumer protection, market integrity, and innovation. Clarity. It is a beautiful word, isn't it? It sounds like sunshine. It sounds like transparent water. It sounds like truth. But in the Washington Dictionary, clarity does not mean freedom. In the context of unregistered securities, clarity means amputation. The administration, seeking to protect the supremacy of the dollar and attract institutional capital, has decided to draw a line in the sand. They are tired of the ambiguity. They are tired of the scams. They are tired of the endless game of whack-a-mole with offshore foundations. This law does not regulate the crypto industry in the way you think. It does not create a sandbox for your favorite token to play in. It surgically separates living tissue from dead tissue. And I am here to tell you that 99% of your portfolio is in the dead zone. Let's look at the text of the law. Let's look at the engineering specifications of this regulatory machine. The Clarity Act introduces a rigid binary system. It destroys the gray area where altcoins have thrived for a decade. Under this new framework, an asset is either a digital commodity under the jurisdiction of the CFTC, or it is a digital security under the jurisdiction of the SEC. There is no third option. There is no utility token. There is no governance token. Those are marketing terms, not legal definitions. The law is binary. You are either a natural resource or you are a corporation. You are either digital gold or you are digital equity. The criteria for a commodity are intentionally drafted to be impossible for the modern crypto market to meet. To be a commodity, the asset must exhibit a total absence of a central management team. It must have no foundation guiding its development. It must have had no pre-mine where insiders rewarded themselves before the public had access. It must have no staking mechanism where yield is derived from holding. It must have a fixed, immutable issuance schedule that cannot be altered by a vote. This is a filter that is finer than a molecule. This is a needle's eye that only one camel can pass through. Only Bitcoin passes this test. Bitcoin has no team. Bitcoin had no pre-mine. Bitcoin offers no yield. Bitcoin is thermodynamics, not politics. Everything else, look at your portfolio. Look at the quote-unquote blue chips of the crypto world. Ethereum with its foundation and its roadmap. The high-speed chains with their venture capital backers. The governance tokens with their DAOs. All of them with their proof-of-stake mechanisms and their charismatic leaders are automatically, instantly, and irrevocably classified as unregistered securities. The law leaves no gray zones for interpretation. It leaves no room for debate. The trap is binary, and the jaws are steel. You might think, well, so what? If they are securities, they will just register. The Ethereum Foundation and the labs behind these other protocols will just fill out Form S1. They will register with the SEC as a public company, like Apple or Microsoft, and trading will continue. You are mistaken. That is impossible. That is an engineering impossibility. Registration is not just a piece of paper. Registration requires the disclosure of all beneficiaries. It requires an audit of financial flows since the Genesis block. It requires the identification of the management team. It requires personal liability for directors regarding future profits and forward-looking statements. For a decentralized organization, this is a legal paradox. It is a death spiral. If they register, they admit they are a centralized company. They admit that the last 5 years of marketing about decentralization was a lie. They admit that they controlled the protocol all along, and the moment they admit that, they are liable for 5 years of selling unregistered securities. They are handing the prosecutor a signed confession. They cannot meet the disclosure requirements without destroying the myth of their existence. You cannot register something that has pretended to be autonomous code for years, but was actually managed like a tax-evading corporation. The moment the light of disclosure hits these organizations, they disintegrate. They are vampires exposed to the sun. But let's assume a miracle. Let's assume they try. You hit an economic wall. The compliance costs for a publicly traded asset in the United States run into the tens of millions of dollars a year. You need auditors. You need lawyers. You need compliance officers. You need quarterly reports. For projects with a market cap under $10 billion, which is almost everything except the top handful, this is economic suicide. Their treasuries are filled with their own printed tokens, not dollars. They cannot pay the lawyers in governance tokens. They have to sell their tokens to pay for the registration to allow you to trade their tokens. The selling pressure alone drives the price to zero. It is cheaper for them to shut down than to become legal. We will see a mass exodus of developers. We will see the founders you worship suddenly go dark. Project teams, realizing their tokens are now toxic waste, will simply drop the GitHub keys. They will wipe their servers. They will vanish to Dubai or non-extradition jurisdictions to avoid criminal prosecution. Investors will be left with zombie tokens, digital assets with no support, no development, no nodes, and no legal status. You will hold the private keys to a ghost town. Now shift your focus to the headquarters of the exchanges. It is the night before the law takes effect. Visualize the boardroom at Coinbase. Visualize the emergency Zoom calls at Binance US. The atmosphere is not one of defiance. It is one of panic. The lawyers are standing at the head of the table. They are not smiling. They are giving the executives an ultimatum. The Clarity Act goes into effect at midnight. Either we immediately delist every asset that meets the definition of a security, or we lose our banking licenses. If we do not delist, the DOJ will seize our domains, the FBI will raid our offices, and you will go to prison for facilitating the sale of unregistered securities. Brian Armstrong is a businessman. The CEOs of these exchanges are rational actors. They are not martyrs for your altcoin bag. They have shareholders. They have IPOs to protect. They have freedom to preserve. They will not risk their entire enterprise, their billions of dollars in infrastructure, to save your speculative bets. The decision is made instantly. It is brutal, and it is final. Mass delisting. They jettison the ballast to keep the ship afloat. And you, my friends, you are the ballast. You are the cargo that must be thrown overboard to save the vessel. Back to your smartphone screen. Back to that gray morning in April 2026. You see the price of your asset. Let's say it's frozen at $100. That was the last traded price before the halt. You look at that number. You multiply it by your holdings. You tell yourself you still have net worth. But the sell button is grayed out. It is inactive. You tap it frantically. Nothing happens. This is the cruelest illusion in finance. You see numbers that tell you that you are rich, but you cannot convert those numbers into food. You cannot convert them into rent. You cannot convert them into energy. They are pixels. They are a hallucination of value. Market makers, the sophisticated algorithmic traders like Jump Trading or Wintermute, they knew this was coming. They have better lawyers than you. They have faster connections than you. They shut off their algorithms 1 minute before the official announcement. They pulled their bids. The order book is empty. There is no one on the other side of the trade. Liquidity has evaporated. Liquidity is a coward. It is the first thing to flee when trouble arrives. No one wants to buy an asset when owning it has become a toxic liability. Who would buy your token? It is illegal to trade it. It is illegal for an exchange to list it. It is illegal for a bank to touch the proceeds from it. You are holding a bag of contraband. Think of it this way. Your capital is trapped in a burning skyscraper. You can smell the smoke. You can feel the heat rising through the floorboards. You run to the fire exit, the exit marked liquidity, only to find that it has been welded shut by SEC lawyers. You bang on the doors. You scream for help, but the building is condemned. Social panic sets in. You try to check Discord. You try to check Telegram. You want to commiserate with your quote-unquote community. You want the developers to tell you it's going to be okay. The chats are in read-only mode. The admins have deleted their accounts. The founders have scrubbed their Twitter histories. The community was an illusion held together by the expectation of profit. Now that the profit is gone, the community dissolves. You scream into the void of social media, but customer support is silent because anything they say can be used against them in a federal court. It is total isolation. Unlike a traditional bank, there is no branch to walk into. There is no manager to yell at. There is no FDIC insurance to file a claim with. There is only error 403, forbidden. You are alone with your decisions. But amidst this digital apocalypse, amidst the smoking ruins of the altcoin market, there is one island of stability. One fortress that stands untouched by the fire. In the same app, on the same exchange, under the same login, the Bitcoin tab works perfectly. You click on it, the chart loads instantly. The candles are painting. The buy and sell buttons are bright green and red. The order book is deep and liquid. Why? Because thanks to the Clarity Act, Bitcoin has received official ironclad status as a digital commodity. The same law that incinerated the unregistered securities has explicitly enshrined Bitcoin as digital property, protected by the same laws that protect gold, oil, and wheat. While altcoins burn in the regulatory fire, the capital that managed to escape, the smart money that saw the writing on the wall, flows into Bitcoin as the only safe haven. The irony is profound. It is Shakespearean. The law that was designed to kill the quote-unquote crypto industry has crowned Bitcoin as the king. The regulatory asteroid has hit the earth, wiping out the dinosaurs, but leaving the apex predator stronger than ever. Trades settle instantly. The price rises amidst the panic because Bitcoin is the only thing the United States government has permitted to survive. It is the only digital asset that does not require the permission of a CEO to exist. Do you think this is accidental? Do you think the timing is a coincidence? BlackRock, Fidelity, the sovereign wealth funds, the pension giants, they could not enter the market while it was full of fraudulent schemes. They could not allocate trillions of dollars to an asset class that was 99% unregistered securities. Their compliance departments would not allow it. Their risk committees would not sign off on it. The Clarity Act is a clearing of the brush. It is a controlled burn. Wall Street demanded that Congress burn the weeds so they could plant their garden. Large capital will not dig through the mud of DeFi protocols to find yield. They do not care about your yield farming. They do not care about your monkey JPEGs. They need a clean, transparent, regulatory compliant asset. They need Bitcoin. And they got the law that eliminates the competition. They lobbied for the fire because they own the fireproof vault. If you hold altcoins, you are not an quote-unquote early adopter. You are not quote-unquote ahead of the curve. You are simply standing in the path of a bulldozer that is paving the road for institutions. You are the obstacle that must be removed so that the real money can enter the system. I am looking at you now, and I am telling you that you have a unique advantage. You are in a time machine. I have just shown you the future of April 2026. I have shown you the gray screen. I have shown you the welded doors. I have shown you the panic. But you are still here. You are still in 2025. The buttons still work. The liquidity is still there. The exit doors are open. Do not wait for the bill to become law. Do not wait for the committee markup. Do not wait for the president's signature. By then, it will be too late. The market is a forward-looking mechanism. It will price in the event before the event happens. Act now, while the sell button still works, while there are still buyers willing to take your donation. Get out of the burning building. Convert your liabilities into assets. Sell your securities and buy the only commodity. Do not become a victim of clarity. Become a beneficiary of the inevitable. Buy Bitcoin before the gate closes. The future is not a mystery. It is a mathematical certainty waiting to execute. The code has been written. The law has been drafted. The outcome is determined. The only variable left in the equation is you. I want you to go back to September 2022. I want you to remember the headlines. I want you to remember the parties. You remember the day Ethereum transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake? They called it the merge. You celebrated it as a triumph of software engineering. You watched the countdown clocks. You posted memes on Twitter. You saw it as a graduation day for the crypto industry. a moment when the technology finally matured. I saw it as a funeral. I saw it as the day Vitalik Buterin voluntarily put handcuffs on his own creation. I saw it as the moment a digital commodity committed suicide, to be reborn as a digital security. You cheered because energy consumption dropped by 99%. You read the articles in the mainstream press praising the, quote, green revolution of crypto. You felt good about it. You felt morally superior. But while you were congratulating yourselves on saving the planet, I watched as you surgically removed the protocol's immune system. In a desperate attempt to appease the ESG agenda, to please the environmentalist, to satisfy the corporate boards who were terrified of carbon footprints, Ethereum abandoned its primary defense, the objective cost of production. They traded thermodynamic truth for political expediency. They traded physics for politics. And it was at that exact moment, when the last miner was turned off and the first validator took over, that Ethereum ceased to be a commodity and became a share of stock in a technology startup. It ceased to be digital oil and became a digital coupon. I admit, the developers at the Ethereum Foundation are brilliant programmers. They are geniuses in their own domain. They can write complex smart contracts. They can optimize gas fees. They can dream up layer 2 scaling solutions that are mathematically elegant. But in the world of finance, they are naive children. They are engineers building a bridge without understanding the laws of gravity. Engineers see code. They see throughput. They see efficiency. They see a problem, high energy usage, and they optimize it away. But regulators do not look at code. Regulators do not care about throughput. Regulators look at cash flows. They look at management efforts. They look at profit expectations. The transition to proof of stake was a brilliant engineering solution for scalability, but it was a catastrophic legal decision for survival. You cannot code immunity from the Securities and Exchange Commission. You cannot write a smart contract that overrides the Securities Act of 1933. You created a system where money makes money without work. You lock up your capital and you receive a yield. In every law textbook in America, in every courtroom, in every regulator's handbook, that is called an investment contract. You built a skyscraper on a foundation of sand, ignoring 100 years of United States financial regulation. You thought you were innovating. In reality, you were just reinventing the unregistered security, but you did it on a blockchain and called it staking instead of a dividend. The vocabulary changed, but the economic reality remained exactly the same. And the law deals in realities, not vocabularies. Let's talk about the anchor of reality. Let's talk about why Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin is not code in a vacuum. It is not just software running on a server. It is a bridge between the physical world of energy and the digital world of value. It is a portal. To create a Bitcoin, you must burn real resources. You must expend electricity. You must buy hardware. You must depreciate assets. You must spend time. Proof of work is the anchor. It requires the burning of energy to secure the ledger. This creates a cost of production. It creates a physical floor for the value. It is analogous to mining gold from the earth or drilling for oil in the ocean. It follows commodity logic. When the price drops below the cost of production, miners turn off, supply tightens, and the price recovers. It is a self-correcting feedback loop grounded in thermodynamics. No one asks who the CEO of gold is. No one asks for the roadmap of gold, because gold is just dead matter that is hard to extract. It is valuable because it is scarce and costly to obtain. Bitcoin is digital matter. Its value is proven by work, not by a promise. This physical anchor makes Bitcoin a commodity that cannot be accused of fraud because you cannot fake energy. You cannot fake work. You either did the work or you didn't. The blockchain proves it. Now look at the contrast. Proof of stake is a, quote, simulation of a universe. It is a video game economy. It is a closed financial loop floating in the void. In a proof of stake system, there is no external reality. You do not expend energy. You do not bridge the physical and the digital. You simply take your tokens, which were created out of thin air by the issuer, and you lock them in a smart contract. And for this act of doing absolutely nothing, you receive more tokens. It is the perpetual motion machine of the financial world. It is the dream of every alchemist to create value without cost. And it inevitably attracts the regulator. Because when you create value without cost, when you offer yield without work, you are running a financial scheme. The yield in Ethereum is not the result of physical work. It is not the result of finding a new block through energy expenditure. It is a dividend paid by the protocol to the holders of capital. It is a redistribution of value from the users to the stakers. It looks like a bond. It smells like a bond. It behaves like a bond. It pays a coupon like a bond. And Gary Gensler is absolutely right when he wants to regulate it like a bond. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, you can call it a consensus mechanism all you want, but the SEC calls it a security, and they have the guns. Let's look at the face of the project. A photo of Vitalik Buterin appears on the screen in your mind. He is brilliant. He is charismatic in his own way. He is the face of Ethereum. Bitcoin has no face. Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared. He left the building in 2011 and never returned. That was his greatest gift to humanity. It was the Immaculate Conception. By removing the founder, he removed the single point of failure. He removed the target. Ethereum has a face. It has a voice. It has a blog. And most importantly, it has a mailing address in Switzerland. The Ethereum Foundation exists. It holds meetings. It decides on upgrades. It employs developers. If the government wants to change the monetary policy of Ethereum, they know exactly who to invite into the interrogation room. They know who to subpoena. They know whose assets to freeze. If the government wants to implement censorship at the protocol level, they know exactly who to pressure. Mr. Buterin, we are concerned about illicit finance on your network. We need you to implement a blacklist of addresses at the validator level. If you do not, we will consider the foundation to be facilitating money laundering. What do you think happens then? Do they fight the US government to the death? Or do they push a software update? This is not decentralization. This is theater. This is a play where the actors pretend they are not directing the outcome, but the script is being written in real time by a small group of people. Decentralization means there is no one to call. With Ethereum, there is a phone book. Let me make a distinction because I love technology. I am an engineer. I made my fortune in software. I understand the value of code. Zoom is great technology. It allows us to communicate globally. Netflix is an amazing service. It changed entertainment. But I do not store my life savings in Zoom stock for 100 years. I do not put my family's legacy in Netflix shares, expecting them to be money in the 22nd century. Ethereum might be a useful platform for launching applications. It might be a great global computer. It might be a fantastic place to trade JPEGs or build decentralized exchanges. But that makes it a technology equity. It makes it a software company. And software companies are terrible stores of value. Utility creates vulnerability. The more functions your Swiss Army knife has, the more things can break. The more complex the code, the larger the attack surface. Money should be simple. Money should be boring. Money should be inert, like granite. It should sit there and not change. It should not need a hard fork every 6 months to improve. Ethereum is complex changing software. It is a living organism that is constantly mutating. To store your life energy in that is insanity. You are betting that the next software update won't have a bug. You are betting that the next roadmap decision won't destroy the value proposition. You are betting on the competence of developers, not the certainty of physics. You sleep soundly because the price holds at $3,000. You see the market cap and you feel safe. But are you prepared to wake up and see $300? Let me describe the mechanics of the crash. It won't happen because the technology fails. It will happen because the legal shield fails. As soon as the SEC officially declares ETH a security, not in a lawsuit but in a formal rule or enforcement action, the institutional funds will be legally obligated to dump it within 24 hours. Fidelity cannot hold an illegal security for its clients. BlackRock cannot have an unregistered investment contract in its ETF. They have fiduciary duties. They have compliance charters. They will sell all of it at market. Exchanges like Coinbase will be forced to delist it to save their licenses. They cannot facilitate the trading of unregistered securities without becoming a criminal enterprise. They will turn off the buy button. Liquidity will vanish faster than you can type your password. The order books will go hollow. You will be left with tokens that technically function. You can still send them from wallet to wallet, but which cannot legally be sold for dollars. You will have chips for a casino that has been shut down by the police. It won't be a drawdown. It won't be a crypto winter. It will be expropriation via regulation. It will be a repricing of the asset from future of finance to illegal software share. And the difference in price between those two realities is 90%. Let's do the math. Let's look at your portfolio. You have 50% in Bitcoin. You have 30% in Ethereum. You have 20% in top 10 altcoins. You look at this pie chart and you see diversification. You see a balanced approach. I look at this and see that 50% of your capital is in the kill zone. 50% of your life energy is sitting in a minefield. You are betting half of your future on the hope that Gary Gensler changes his mind. You are betting on the hope that Congress passes a law legalizing illegal securities just to save your bags. That is not a bet on technology. That is not a bet on adoption. That is a bet on a political miracle. And in politics, there are no miracles. There are only deals. And you are not at the table. The bankers are at the table. The regulators are at the table. You are on the menu. Let's look at the optimistic scenario. I call this the illusion of safety. This is the scenario where I am wrong and the disaster doesn't happen immediately. Suppose the regulatory attack is delayed. Suppose they kick the can down the road for another 4 years. Bitcoin grows 20% a year, driven by scarcity and institutional adoption. Ethereum grows 25% a year in dollar terms, riding the beta of the market. But look closer. Look at the ETH BTC chart since the merge. It is a structural downtrend. It makes lower highs and lower lows. Even when Ethereum goes up in dollars, it bleeds against Bitcoin. You are taking on massive technological risk, massive regulatory risk, and massive execution risk, all to underperform the risk-free asset of the ecosystem. Even in the best case, you are taking on existential risk for minimal extra yield. You are picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. You might win a few pennies. You might feel smart for a few months, but you risk losing everything if the steamroller moves an inch. This is bad asymmetry. This is bad engineering. Smart money does not play games like that. Smart money wants asymmetric upside with bounded downside. You have capped upside with unbounded downside. Now let's look at scenario 2, the regulatory strike, the application of the Howey test. The screen in your mind turns blood red. Scenario 2 is simple. The Trump administration, or any administration that cares about the rule of law, decides to, quote, drain the swamp of crypto fraud. They decide that enough is enough. One day, an SEC press release drops. It's not a rumor, it's an order. All proof-of-stake assets are deemed securities under the Securities Act of 1933. Issuers have 30 days to register or cease trading. The chain reaction begins instantly. It moves at the speed of light. Mass sell-offs by every compliant institution. Panic selling by retail. Staking contracts are frozen by centralized providers like Lido or Coinbase because they are now considered unregistered securities offerings. Lawsuits are filed against validators for processing illegal transactions. Your 30% in Ethereum turns to dust. It trades at a fraction of its former value, accessible only on shady offshore exchanges with no liquidity. Your 20% in altcoins evaporates completely because they have even less liquidity than Ethereum. Bitcoin dips on the news. Of course it does. Panic is contagious. But then, Bitcoin recovers. It recovers in a month. Why? Because it is outside the jurisdiction. It is a commodity. It is not a security. The capital that flees the burning building of altcoins has to go somewhere, and it goes into the fireproof vault of Bitcoin. And you? You are left with half your capital destroyed. You are left with a portfolio that has been cut in half. Not by the market, but by your own greed and blindness to risk. You bet on the wrong horse, and the horse was disqualified. Look at the trend. Look at the vector. With every upgrade, Ethereum becomes more complex. The code base grows. The dependencies grow. With every hard fork, Pectra, Verge, Purge, it becomes more managed. The decisions become more centralized. With every dollar locked in staking, it looks more like a bank. The risk is not static. It is not staying the same. It is growing exponentially. Where there is a team, there is liability. Where there is marketing, there is fraud potential. Where there are promises of yield, there is a security. There is always a regulator watching. It is a law of nature. You cannot outrun it. The more successful Ethereum becomes as a business, the closer it gets to its legal death. Success attracts scrutiny. If Ethereum truly becomes the global settlement layer for finance, do you think the US government will let it be run by a foundation in Switzerland? No. They will capture it. They will regulate it. They will force it to comply. And in that compliance, the value proposition of permissionless money is destroyed. Now that you know the truth about proof of stake, now that you understand the mechanics of the Howey test, now that you see the vector of risk pointing directly at your portfolio, I have a question for you. What percentage of your family's savings are you willing to bet on Ethereum? What percentage of your life energy are you willing to store in a battery that the government can turn off? For me, the answer is 0. Not one Satoshi, not 1 minute of my energy, not $1 of my shareholders' capital. I will not touch a system that can be turned off by a subpoena. I will not build my house on land I do not own. There is Bitcoin, and there is everything else. One is property, the other is a security. One is truth, the other is a promise. Do not be fooled. The screen displays a single digit, 0%. The choice is yours, but the math is undeniable. I want you to understand one thing before we part ways. I am not here as your financial advisor. I am not here as a prophet predicting the tides of fortune. And God forbid, I am not a politician seeking your vote or your validation. I am an engineer. I come from MIT. My mind is not wired for narratives. It is wired for mechanics. And how do engineers think? We do not look for the happy path. We do not look for the best case scenario. We look for points of failure. We stress test the system until it breaks, so we can understand where the cracks will form. Any bridge, any airplane, any nuclear reactor, any financial system has a breaking point. It has a critical weakness. In traditional finance, and in the chaotic, unregulated world of altcoins, that point of failure is always the same thing. It is not a bug in the code. It is not a server outage. The point of failure is a human being. A human can lie. A human can panic. A human can be bribed. A human can be coerced. A human has an ego, a fear of prison, and a desire for social acceptance. These are vulnerabilities. In engineering terms, these are fatigue fractures waiting to expand. Bitcoin is different. It is unique in the history of our species. Bitcoin is the first engineering system for storing value in the history of the world that has no human factor in the critical path. The miner does not need to like you to process your transaction. The node does not need to know your name to verify your balance. The protocol does not need a board meeting to determine the inflation rate. This is not an opinion. This is a structural fact. It is a distinction as fundamental as the difference between a handshake and the law of gravity. Look at the screen in your mind. See the words in stark white letters. Code is law. What does that mean? It means Bitcoin has no CEO who can be subpoenaed to testify before Congress. There is no Mark Zuckerberg of Bitcoin who can be dragged in front of a committee to apologize for the algorithm. There is no office in San Francisco or Zug that can be raided by the FBI and sealed with yellow tape. There is no board of directors that can vote to increase issuance to save a quarterly earnings report or bail out a bankrupt partner. The protocol is immutable. 21 million coins, a halving every 4 years, a difficulty adjustment every 2016 blocks. These are the constants of the universe. These rules are not written on paper. They are not stored in the Library of Congress. They are carved into the structure of the mathematical universe, enforced by the laws of thermodynamics and cryptography. Neither Donald Trump nor Xi Jinping can change Planck's constant. They cannot legislate the speed of light. And in the exact same way, they cannot change the monetary policy of Bitcoin. It is an absolute in a world of relativity. It is a stone in a river of mud. Now, look at your portfolios. Look at those tickers you cherish. SOL, ADA, XRP, DOT. What do you actually own? Be honest with yourself. Do you own a share of a protocol? Do you own a digital commodity? No. You own hope. Holding an altcoin is a bet on the kindness of bureaucrats. It is a wager on the mood of a regulator. You are betting that Gary Gensler wakes up in a good mood on a Tuesday morning. You are betting that Congress will be merciful and pass an exemption for your specific token. You are betting that Vitalik Buterin does not make a coding error, or that the Solana Foundation does not get sued, or that the ripple of legal trouble does not turn into a tsunami. This is the strategy of a victim. This is the strategy of a serf waiting for the king to grant him land. If you need permission for your money to remain money, you do not have money. You have meal vouchers for a prison cafeteria. You have credit at the company store, and the company store can close at any moment. I know what they taught you in business school. I know what the wealth managers tell you. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify. Asset allocation. That is wise advice if you are ignorant. If you do not know which basket is strong, if you cannot tell the difference between steel and wicker, then yes, spread your bets. Pray that one of them survives. But if you are an engineer and you have tested the materials, the logic changes. If you know that one basket is woven from titanium reinforced by the strongest computing network on Earth, and the others are made of rotting straw and held together by marketing promises, diversification becomes stupidity. It becomes negligence. I operate on a simple principle: hold the winner, cut the losers. In the world of technology, networks tend toward monopoly. There is always one winner. Google won search, Facebook won social, Amazon won commerce. You do not use the second best search engine. You do not join the third largest social network. Bitcoin won money. The war is over. The dust has settled. Selling Bitcoin to buy the quote-unquote next Bitcoin is like selling Apple stock in 2010 to buy Nokia. It is like selling Google to buy Lycos. It is financial suicide committed for the illusion of variety. You are selling the apex predator to buy the prey. You see the laser eyes on my profile. You see the red glow. You think this is a meme? You think this is a joke for Twitter? No, it is a symbol. It is a symbol of absolute concentration. Think about the physics of a laser. Ordinary light is incoherent. It scatters. It illuminates everything weakly. It is wasted energy. A laser is coherent light. It focuses all the photons, all the energy, all the power into a single point. And that single point is capable of cutting through steel. It is capable of transmitting information across the galaxy. Laser eyes represent the discipline of rejecting noise. I do not look at NFTs. I do not look at DeFi yield farming. I do not care about the latest meme coin that went up 1,000% in an hour. I do not get distracted by the noise of the press or the shiny objects in the casino. I focus all the energy of my company, all the energy of my intellect, and all the capital I can access on the single asset that is changing the world. This is investor asceticism. This is the monk's discipline applied to capital. Focus creates wealth. Diversification only preserves it for those who are already rich and terrified of losing it. If you want to change your life, you need the laser, not the floodlight. Listen to me carefully. We are in a unique moment in time. The clock is ticking, but you cannot hear it. Right now, this very second, the markets are open. The sell button next to your altcoins is active. It is green. It works. Liquidity exists. There are still market makers willing to buy your bag. There are still retail investors willing to take the other side of your trade. This window will not remain open forever. You are standing in a burning building, but the smoke has not yet filled the hallways. The alarms are silent. Most people do not realize the fire has started in the basement. The foundation is already smoldering. You have a rare chance, a gift from the universe, to walk out the front door calmly with your dignity and your capital intact. You can take your chips off the casino table and exchange them for hard currency. You can trade your lottery tickets for gold bars. Do not wait until the smell of smoke becomes unbearable. Do not wait until the flames are licking at the door. Do not wait until the exits are blocked by the stampede of panic. Because when the crowd runs, the door will jam. And when the door jams, the liquidity hits zero. I know the inner voice whispering to you right now. I know the seduction of the ego. It says, but Michael, my token is different. My project is special. You think, Solana is too fast to fail. It processes 50,000 transactions per second. You think, my project has a partnership with Google Cloud. It has big venture capital backers. It's too legitimate to be shut down. Forget it. Silence that voice. It is lying to you. To a regulator in Washington, you are not an innovative protocol. You are not a decentralized revolution. You are a line item in an Excel spreadsheet. You are a ticker symbol under the header unregistered securities offering. The law is blind to technological nuance. The law does not care about your transaction throughput. It does not care about your consensus mechanism. The hammer of justice strikes the head of the nail without asking what alloy it is made of. It strikes because it is a nail. Your belief in the exceptionalism of your shitcoin is a cognitive bias. It is the endowment effect. You value it because you own it, and it is a bias for which you will pay with your entire capital. Do not let your ego bankrupt you. Remember the gray screen. I want you to visualize it again. Remember that Monday morning in April 2026. Remember the silence. Remember the helplessness. Remember the sickening feeling in the pit of your stomach when you realize that the millions on your screen have turned into zero in reality, when the pixels refuse to convert into bread. At that moment, no amount of technical analysis will help you. No amount of drawing lines on a chart will save you. No diamond hands mentality will save you if the market is closed. You cannot hold what does not exist. The only thing that saves you from that morning is the action you take today. The fear of the future should motivate rationality in the present. You must act while you have agency. The best defense against catastrophe is not to participate in it. The only way to win a game of Russian roulette is to put down the gun. There are only two types of assets in the universe. Everything boils down to this distinction. The first type is anchored to the laws of physics, to thermodynamics. It requires energy to create. It requires energy to maintain. It is real. This is gold. This is oil. This is real estate. And this is Bitcoin. It is matter. It has mass, digital or physical. It cannot be wished into existence. The second type is promises. This is fiat currency. This is a stock certificate. This is a bond. And this is every single altcoin without exception. A promise is a social contract. It is a piece of paper or a line of code that says, I owe you. You have a fundamental choice, a fork in the road of your destiny. Do you want to own matter or do you want to own promises? Matter is eternal. Atoms do not lie. Energy cannot be destroyed. Promises are broken every time it becomes profitable for a human being to break them. Promises are broken when the pressure gets too high. Promises are broken when the regulator walks in the door. Bitcoin is digital matter. It is granite in the cloud. Altcoins are digital promises. They are paper airplanes in a hurricane. Choose. Journalists often ask me, Michael, how do you sleep at night? You have billions of dollars in Bitcoin. It's volatile. It moves 10% in a day. How do you sleep knowing it could drop 50%? I answer them honestly. I sleep like a baby. I sleep better than I ever did when I held cash. Price volatility is noise. It is the wind blowing against the mountain. Protocol reliability is the signal. It is the mountain itself. I know that while I sleep, blocks are being mined every 10 minutes. Tick-tock, next block. I know that the difficulty is adjusting. I know that the hash rate is securing the wall of encrypted energy. I know that no one can dilute my share. No one can print more Bitcoin to devalue my labor. I know that my keys are my property, and no judge can strike a gavel and take them from me. When Judgment Day comes for the crypto market and all the promises collapse, when the paper burns and the illusions shatter, I will wake up wealthy. Not because I was lucky, but because I chose the only thing that cannot be destroyed. People call me a maximalist. They say it with a sneer. They think it is an insult. They think it is a religion, a cult, a blindness. No, they are wrong. 100% Bitcoin is not faith. It is not religion. It is the result of a mathematical equation. It is risk analysis derived from first principles. If you honestly weigh counterparty risk, if you weigh regulatory risk, if you weigh execution risk, if you weigh inflation risk, then any other asset in the denominator of that equation gives a result approaching zero. Any number multiplied by zero is zero. If the probability of regulatory enforcement is 100% over a long enough time frame, the value of the asset is zero. This is a cold, rational engineering decision in an environment of radical uncertainty. When you build a bridge, you do not use 90% steel and 10% paper mache because you want diversification of materials. You do not want a balanced bridge. You want a bridge that stands. You use 100% steel. Bitcoin is steel. Everything else is paper. The choice is yours, my friends. I have shown you the math. I have shown you the future. I have shown you the fire. You can walk out of this room and continue playing in the casino. You can go back to the roulette wheel hoping to outsmart the house, hoping to time the exit, hoping the music never stops. You can chase the yield and ignore the risk. Or you can make the decision of an adult. You can make the decision of a responsible human being who values their time, their energy, and their legacy. The casino doors are not always open. The lights do not stay on forever. The bouncer is checking his watch. Choose while you still have a choice. Choose while the buttons still work. Choose while you still have liquidity. Sell your illusions, sell your promises, sell your risk. Buy the truth, buy the energy, buy the steel, buy Bitcoin.